Recording in progress.
Hello, thank you to everybody who's joining us in person and online, and who will be watching this recording later. This is a public forum of the town of Somerset with a representative from the 2nd District of the Montgomery County Police, Lieutenant Ari Elkin. And so the Public Safety Committee has reached out to the town with questions for the lieutenant, and the lieutenant as well is going to present on matters that will be of interest to the residents of Somerset. And so with that, here we have in person with us Mayor Jeffrey Slavin, Council President Robin Barr, Councilmember Rohit Khanna, and then myself, Town Manager EJ Hardwick, and Deputy Town Manager Justin Burgett.
And then introduce
And so
his full name and title.
now I will turn it over to 2nd District Lieutenant Ari Elkin.
Okay.
Oh, hi. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ari Elkin. I'm the Deputy Commander of the 2nd District here in Bethesda. I was telling EJ earlier, he asked me if I was familiar with Somerset, and I am very familiar with Somerset as I grew up on DeRussy Parkway, and I attended Somerset Elementary School. So, and I don't live far from here now, and so I'm a local guy who's.
Okay, you get a lot of bonus points.
So I've lived
and
here.
We'll be calling you personally a lot now.
So I've lived here most of my life within this few square miles right in here. So
Excellent.
it was interesting to see the Mazza Gallery being redeveloped, because I used to spend a lot of time in the Mazza Gallery when I lived on Dixon Parkway. So anyway, having said that, just a little bit on me, other than I grew up in Somerset or in the area here. I'm about to complete my 29th year with the police department. Had a lot of good assignments, but I started my career in Bethesda actually as a patrol officer, and I'm now finding that on the twilight of my career, I'm back as a deputy commander in Bethesda. So I've kind of had a full circle moment here, but I've had a very good career, and I'm very happy to be in Bethesda. I did receive some questions ahead of time that have to do with trends that would, any concerns, but I'll start just with the overall straight out numbers that we have for the town of Somerset. And as EJ pointed out in your email when you sent me, that our crime data, for the actual incorporated area of Somerset is very low. As a matter of fact, in the last year, there's been a total of 5 reported incidents in the incorporated area, and then the surrounding area is a little bit more because we've included like the Friendship Heights area as part of data collection, just to give you a snapshot of what's happening around the area. There have not been any theft from autos reported, as you've said, and that has been traditionally theft from autos and residential burglaries are what we see the most of in residential communities. And I think the messaging has definitely reached the residents here to not leave valuables in the car, lock your car, and not leave keys in the car, key fobs. So we certainly appreciate that effort, because we are still seeing, a lot of trends and theft from autos in other parts of the district, but it's certainly, the message has been well received here. The one number that I will tell you does pop up and has popped up as part of the stats for the town of Somerset, and is more prevalent within the Friendship Heights area, is incidents of reported fraud. I will tell you, there are a lot more sophisticated scams out there. We are in the spring now, so this is the time that you're going to start seeing a lot of landscapers coming, tree trimmers, people that might not be licensed and bonded, knocking on people's doors saying, hey, can I trim a tree, and charging ridiculous amounts of money. And also they might not be doing a good job. But the fraud, these fraud scams target, and they have algorithms in their systems where they know your age, your how long you've lived at a particular residence. So they really do drill down and target folks. So the numbers of Friendship Heights have been quite alarming. I've been working with their village manager to do a lot of outreach with their different residents there, so that they do not fall victim to that. We did have 2 reported incidents in the town of Somerset in the last year of fraud. So just something to keep in mind. And like I said, the scams are very sophisticated. The text messages that people receive about UPS packages, Social Security, the police are looking for you. I will tell you that if the police are looking for you, they're not going to text you, and they're not going to send you an email. they're going to knock on your door. There's going to be more direct communication, more official communication. As far as there's been no violent crime reported here within the town of Somerset. I will talk about briefly two newsworthy incidents that occurred, or three, I would say. One was the shooting and attempted carjacking that we had in Friendship Heights a few months ago. That was at roughly around 7:30 in the evening. A gentleman was going to his car. He was apparently followed, and then the perpetrator ended up trying to steal his car and shot him. And thanks to the quick work of one of our officers who applied a tourniquet, I was able to save that gentleman's life. An arrest was made in that case. I don't know the background or the reasons, the motive behind the attempted carjacking. It was a female from the district that committed the attempted carjacking, so she's in custody. But that I will tell you that one of the things that helped in that case were the abundance of cameras that are present in the Friendship Heights area, and we were able to our detectives were able to do quite a bit of connecting dots between the camera feeds, following the person onto the metro, information from fare cards, etc. So it was a really good case. Another case we had recently was a shooting that occurred at the Bullmore Lanes at West Park, which made the news quite a bit. And that just happened a few weeks ago on a Friday night, where we have determined it's an active investigation, so I can't give too many details, but there was a shooting where many shots were fired, as evidenced by the amount of shell casings that were recovered on the scene. But I will tell you that our detectives have identified some people of interest, and the investigation is very fluid and active. But we feel comfortable saying that there are no active threats to the community as a result of that particular case. It was a one-off isolated incident that we believe occurred between two groups who happened to have gone to the Bullmore that night. And then the third thing that was on one of the things that you all had inquired about was the accident that occurred out here at Wisconsin Avenue in Dorset, probably about a month ago, which involved we got the call as an accident with an assault in progress. And there was and it was just that, an assault with there was some contraband found in the car. There was an arrest made, but it was nothing that was germane to the town of Somerset. It just happened to occur, on Wisconsin Avenue. There was a significant police response because in addition to the accident portion, there was an active fight that was occurring. So we had a lot of officers that responded. So I think that probably drew quite a bit of attention. As far as the other questions, there was a question asked about lost property and what that refers to in our crime data. Lost property could be anything that anyone reports that's serialized equipment that they've misplaced. Sometimes passports, people lose passports or official identification, and in order to get another passport, they have to make a report. And that's typically what those lost property claims are. We don't see many of them, but when they do come through, it's something that someone has misplaced or lost that is serialized in some kind of official document or something that we might be able to trace. Let's see here, gone through that. Someone asked, how difficult is it to steal a vehicle without the key? I will tell you that we have a couple different vehicle theft trends that occur. One trend that we are now probably coming out of is when it's cold out, people like to go out and warm their cars up and leave them running and then go back inside, or they'll activate them remotely and accidentally unlock it as well. So we have we do have instances where people will just jump into a car that is running and warmed up that does not have a key in it or the fob, but the car is driving. Because of some work we did with the Kia company, and software updates to cars that have a lot of tech in them, we have, I think, seen a pretty good downward trend in theft of cars that where the people stealing were able to figure out the glitches around software. Those have really calmed down. What we're seeing a rise in are older cars, Toyotas, Hondas that are being stolen that don't have the GPS devices in them. And the reason why folks are stealing those cars is because they're typically stealing those to go then commit other crimes like robberies and so forth. And because those cars don't have a lot of tech in them, they're not easy to track. And some people, as a matter of fact, some of them are really older cars that some people just don't even care about. Like, it's okay that you stole it, I'm not going to miss it, I'll get it, So we're seeing less of the carjackings and thefts of newer model cars that have good tech, good anti-theft devices in them, and a rise in theft of cars that are older, and usually Honda or Toyota products. But some cars, depending upon the manufacturer, you can drive the car without the fob for quite a while, and some have to be within a certain range of the fob, and then then they're gonna stop working. So, but that's generally the trends that we've been seeing. As far as, let me see what else we have here on the list. And there was a question about swatting and what are we doing to mitigate swatting calls? And this was something that we were seeing quite a bit of. Typically, and because of the change in administration, politics, a lot of times we have officials who are being targeted because of a particular political belief. But we've done a pretty good job connecting with people who have been targets of swatting incidents or people who believe they would be potential targets. And we enter their information into our CAD system, our computer aided dispatch system. And we have mechanisms in place to warn our officers that, or our folks that up at our communication center, that if they receive a call and a particular address that sounds like swatting, the CAD hazard, it's called, will pop up on their screen. So they will know that more than likely this is a swatting call because it's the home of so-and-so. And they will notify the supervisor, the patrol supervisor who's working. We'll still vet the information. We'll still, check the welfare, try to make contact, but we're not bringing the SWAT team and everybody else unless we have verified information. And I will say that because there was an uptick in that probably this same time last year, we've had many people in the Bethesda district that have proactively reached out to us and said, hey, I was part of this investigation, or I was a member of the cabinet and now I'm here, and I don't want to be a victim to this. So we've done probably more than most jurisdictions do in terms of assisting those individuals with assisting them in preventing this happening to them is probably the best way I can put it. And the last thing on my list here was about concerns raised lately about safety in schools, particularly at BCC. What are the county police and MCPS doing to address those concerns? There have been some very high profile incidents at our schools with fights, people bringing either real guns or fake guns to schools. That is not just germane to BCC and Montgomery County. It's happening in all parts of the county and the country. We work very closely with MCPS. Marcus Jones is the chief of security for MCPS. He's our former chief of police. So he's obviously very familiar with strategies on how to prevent these types of occurrences. But at the end of the day, I can tell you that most of the information we get, or the way we find out about these things, is through other students that are actually, thankfully, seeing something, they're saying something, they're bringing it to the attention of an administrator at school, and we are then responding. The decision whether to lock down a school or shelter in place, that is strictly an MCPS decision. The police do not make those decisions. The only time that we get involved in whether they lock the school down or go to shelter in place is if we have an incident that's occurring outside the community, outside the school area, and we need to tell them, hey, because of a credible threat, active threat that we're working, they'll still make their own decision, but we will then suggest, hey, you might want to go to shelter in place or lockdown. There's a lot of robust debate around police and schools. The way we operate now is with we call it our CEO program, community engagement officers. That's what the old SRO program has morphed into. Whereas, and the main difference is that the old SRR program, the officers were, basically stationed at the school and present in the school. That's where they would report, for their workday. And with the CEO program, we have officers that are basically assigned to a school cluster where they typically will come to the school. It's not that they're not welcome at the school to drop in and talk to administrators, talk to the students, but they typically will not respond to the school or don't respond unless they are called by the school staff to come to the school to address an issue. But it does not mean they're not welcome there. So I think that was a misnomer that was out there for a while. And that is, so I hope that answers kind of and gives you kind of a snapshot of what we see and what we're dealing with. A couple other things to note as far as technology. We did put out a press release that we have the drone responder program is now active in the 2nd district, which means we have a drone that flies. It's typically between the hours of noon and 10 p.m. and it's launched from one of the buildings in downtown Bethesda, but it does reach to Friendship Heights, so it does cover Somerset, Chevy Chase area. It goes as far north as Cedar Lane and the Pike, almost to 495. And that gives us overwatch capability to see what's happening down below. The drone responds when there's a call for service. So they're not just flying around looking for stuff. It has to be connected to a call for service. So, but our drone pilots and our drone center do monitor. We have live 911, which means that our pilots can hear the call to 911 in real time as it's being called in, which patrol officers don't have access to that yet. So if someone's calling, hey, I've got something going on, they're hearing it and the drone is already up and headed that way. That's why they call it the drone as first responder. The idea is for that drone to get on site before the police, the responding officer does. And, they can zoom in, see what's going on, float, they can't fly higher than 400 feet, but they can certainly come down and get a good look if they need to. So that's something that we're pretty excited about. We've already seen very good results with it in Silver Spring and Wheaton and also in Bethesda. So we won't fly on rainy days like we had this morning, but certainly clear days where weather's not an issue and wind's not an issue, they can fly. So that's basically it. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has and take it from there.
Does anybody in the room have any questions?
Right, yeah, I mean, what the drone is a sort of automated system, clearly with human involvement. There are speed cameras too.
Yep.
And I believe there's also a pilot going in shortage at the moment on stop sign cameras. How do you see these? Are they useful to you, threats to you? How do you see those kind of?
Oh, no, I see technology is a big benefit to law enforcement. We also have, license plate readers, which we're seeing a lot of communities are installing. LPRs is what they're called. We have, we're big on camera systems. We have the Montgomery County Police has a real-time crime center. And in that real-time crime center, we have analysts, and the folks we have in there right now are retired Montgomery County police officers that monitor camera feeds. They can see what the drone's seeing. They monitor license plate reader hits, and they provide real-time information to our officers who are responding out in the field. And so, and quite honestly, we need technology as we sort of deal with a very major recruiting and retention crisis that we're in the midst of. So we see technology as a force multiplier, 100%. And I think certainly there was some resistance at first, I think, from the community. People are wondering about, privacy rights and all of that. But I think, we've been very transparent in how we have pushed out the information. Like you can go on the Montgomery County Police website and see, we have a whole website for our drone program, which catalogs every single mission that they fly and maps it out, what the call was for. So anyone can go see what they're doing.
It's a very important distinction also that they don't go on their own patrol, they're on called.
Yes. Yeah, because there was a lot of concern, like, am I going to see the drone just peering into my window? No, absolutely not. It doesn't have the battery life to do that, just to be up there all day long and do that. But that would not be what it was intended, its intended use. So we've, we're very proud of the program but yes, at the surface level, the love them or not, the speed cameras are here to stay. Certainly, I think the data supports that they have reduced number of crashes and fatalities that have occurred in the county. Are there going to be, a lot of people say, why can't we get it in this street or that street? There has to be, the road has to be a certain, amount of lanes, there has to be a certain amount of volume. So, but they certainly have an effect. There's no doubt about it. We've also had, I know that we've been piloting noise sensor, like noise cameras and so forth for a lot of mufflers. So I know that's being piloted right now. They're looking at a couple different vendors for that. So yeah, so the traffic is never going to go away. It's something we deal with here in an urban area. So we're always looking at with the best technologies to do that and to look at those things. So
Right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for the overview there. So I have just a number of questions on the examples you talked about. One is on the scamming and frauds. Does your department have a sort of a checklist of things that we can maybe send around to our residents? Do you have a resource that we can use?
yes, we have our community.
How not to get trapped by scams?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'll certainly I can push that out.
Are you talking about the scam on the phone or the scam that comes to your door?
Either or both.
Both,
Yeah,
because I would think that when you said that there were only 2 reports in Somerset, that's because nobody's reporting, because I probably get 1 a week. And
Well, I'm saying one where people are victims of it, not when people just come to your door trying to scam you.
No, but what about
Yeah.
the ones that the phone scams?
Yeah, I mean, unless you're a victim. So those are reports where there's victims, like where someone has fallen for the scam
Right.
and there's been a financial loss.
Yeah.
Yeah, not someone who's tried to scam you, but you didn't fall for it.
Well,
Like,
when
those
we
numbers
do
are probably
get-
much higher.
When we, like, the last time I got scammed, something that's Social Security,
Mhm.
I got all these phone numbers and names of people. So I don't know if they make that up or what, but are these the kind of things that we should tell our citizens to report?
I would tell them just to be aware and not to fall for the scam. We certainly cannot, we don't have the bandwidth to,
To investigate.
Right, to
You
investigate
can't
every
investigate.
time someone
I
gets a
see.
phone call or a scam email.
Because some years
Yeah.
ago, I think that was the recommendation of Montgomery County Police, but probably there's so many. you
Yeah,
can't
it's gotten a lot
trust.
more sophisticated over the years. And,
Yeah, I'm sure.
But we do have, yes,
There's
we have a
some
community service
resources.
officer, Damon Johnson. We have a lot of information and I'll make sure that gets pushed out to you
Yeah,
all.
thank you.
Because just as you said, the car break-ins are down in Somerset
Yep.
because I think we did a lot of awareness.
Absolutely,
I think
absolutely.
we want to do the same for that.
Yep.
The second thing on that Friendship Heights carjacking incident,
Mhm.
what I read in the newspapers was that part of it was that the gentleman involved there sort of struggled with this assailant and there was
Mhm.
and just as a citizen, I want to be clear, my understanding is the police always advise that a car or a shoe or whatever is not worth the tussle. And
That's right.
so some of the media reports have almost made this individual look like a hero for standing up and so I think so it's important for I think citizens to know what the right thing to do is because that storyline didn't quite match the narrative that I
Yeah.
normally hear from police, which is don't get into a fight with somebody trying to carjack.
At the end of the day, it is property and property can be replaced, but people can't.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely correct. And I certainly don't know what the motivation of the victim was in this case. Whether, the victim sort of sized up the person and said, you know what? Yeah, I'm your size or bigger and I'm not gonna, but yeah, at the end of the
Once the
day.
weapon came out, the size is irrelevant.
I don't know,
Yeah.
so, but you're absolutely right, yes, our posture is, certainly it's a property crime. You're better just to be safe than sorry, and then be a good witness, certainly any description factors, try to call right on the scene. If you don't have a cell phone, find someone nearby who does, but don't try not to delay the reporting so that we can respond quickly and have a chance at apprehending the person who did it.
My third question is on BCC.
Mhm.
From your perspective, are there things that the community needs to be advocating for, that MCPS or the county or whoever the authorities maybe need to be doing more of?
That's a question with a lot of tentacles, I'll say.
Yes, sure.
And look, I'm a parent of MCPS kids. I have one who graduated high school last year, one in high school now, and one in middle school. So these issues are, very, present for me as well. I think that the most important thing, and I know it's kind of cliche to say, is it starts at home, right? Talking to your kids, knowing what they're getting into. I can tell you some of the kids that I would consider well-behaved and well-intended, they get into and they do a lot of, I'll just call it stupid stuff, including my own children. I will tell you that the power of the cell phone and social media is something that the five of us probably never had to contend with. I'm not sure about these two young men here, but it's a whole other dimension to growing up. And the challenges, the stuff they share, the jokes they make, it can be very damaging. And they really do things that would just make your head spin that we never could have dreamed of growing up. That combined with the fact that the access to stuff on the internet, you probably heard the term ghost guns, they're called PMF, privately manufactured firearms. It's all there for them to order, to put together, 3D printers. I mean, you name it. It's just that the ability to do these things and get into things is just there. And because and now I'm going to dive into personal opinion a little bit, because our kids have not been taught or learned how to communicate through talking to each other and talking through things, they resort to these other things, other ways of settling disputes that you and I would have just talked about or talked through, or even, maybe had a little tussle, but it was over. So you could have these children that are being bullied on social media, don't know how to communicate with anybody because all they do is hold on to a phone and text all day and night. And they think that's the only way to resolve their conflict. So I think it starts at home, seeing what your kids are doing. I monitor my kids' phones all the time. They hate it, but hey, I pay for it. It's my phone. You just have the privilege of using it when I say so. And I think some parents get overrun by their kids, and they don't have the willpower, the patience, to stick with it. And it is draining. It can be. The other part of that is parental involvement in school. MCPS is one of the largest school systems in the country. They have a lot of moving parts, but they have a lot of excellent folks that want to help, that want to be there for the kids. I think it's important to be engaged as a parent, know who your kids, administrators are, teachers, participate, and be active. And certainly everyone who's here or on this call are people that care, or you wouldn't be here, right? So there's PTAs, there's school board, there's all kinds of ways to participate and be a part of those decisions and that input process. And that's what I would encourage folks to do. But I will tell you, BCC is an outstanding high school, one of the best. But because of where it's located and the demographic of the kids who go there, no different than Walt Whitman or any of these schools, they get a lot, when stuff happens, people take notice because there are a lot of involved parents and they're who demand action, demand answers, and I don't blame them. But it's going on in a lot of places. So yeah, I mean, it's complicated, but it starts with talking to your kids, knowing what they're involved in, who they're hanging out with, what are they doing, being involved with their teachers and the folks at the school. But I don't know that I have a lot more advice beyond that. But other than to tell you that there's a lot that goes on with kids that, yeah, if you were sitting in my seat and see what I see, would probably make your head spin a little bit too.
That's exactly what I'm.
And sharing of photos, things that, I tell kids, like, you might not know what you want to do 10 years from now as a profession. Some might want top secret clearances or go into this. But decisions they're making with their phones right now are gonna follow them for quite a while. So they gotta be very careful with how they use it and things that they do in school, so.
Is MCPS beginning to restrict cell phone usage in school?
You know, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I think, based on my experience, I think some teachers, and I'll speak about the high school level. Some teachers, my understanding, I think you have to drop your phone in like an area when they walk in, so they can't physically have it. And I think some teachers are probably like, you know what,
Are the police?
Oh, no,
preventing it?
no, we're not
Stay
involved.
away from that.
no, we're not involved in any administrative issues at schools whatsoever.
Yeah, I have a few. So first of all, officer, thank you for that great parenting advice. We should have you write a column, and I can't wait to read your book. And please thank also the commander. We
Madam
appreciate
Bell, yeah.
all her. We're glad you're here. So I had a few questions. First of all, so when the county police first bought speed cameras, the county, I forget if it was the county or the police, they were only a certain number and they could only distribute it. Because years ago, we wanted to have a speed camera on Dorset Avenue, but we were told that there was a limited number and it wasn't a busy enough street. But do you have more cameras now? And do you have the ability to move them around or not?
Yeah, so there is, and this is also on our police page about, if you go to like the how-to portion of the Montgomery County Police page and you look at the automated traffic and enforcement section information, a lot of it is spelled out there. I don't know all the specifics, but I think that, yes, to answer your question is, yes, we do have a lot more speed cameras than we did when the program first started.
Right.
I do believe it's based on volume, on whether it's a county road or state road, how many lanes it has.
But they wouldn't do, would they, our roads are owned by our town, so
Yeah,
would they ever do
I
it?
don't know.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
we'll follow up that because perhaps maybe if they have more, that maybe every once in a while they could place.
So
Because it's easy to move them around, isn't it, or not?
yeah, I don't think it's difficult to move them around. Again, I haven't done it, so I don't know for
Okay.
sure, but I certainly can direct you to the
Yeah,
to the
if we
person
can-
who is in charge.
Yeah,
And I will tell you, because yes, the town of Somerset is incorporated, you have your own budget, that we do have the Montgomery County Police Foundation. And the reason I bring them up is because we have seen some municipalities, and we have worked with some municipalities that want to purchase the type of equipment that they see out, in other parts of the county for their municipality. And they want to purchase it and then kind of donate it to the police to maintain.
oh, okay.
So that might be something for us to discuss
Okay,
and explore. So
excellent,
maybe
excellent.
if you can't get one from the county, it might be something you look to purchase. And then it's where you want it.
Okay,
And then we monitor
Excellent.
the data, but.
That's excellent.
So,
The next thing I wanted to ask about is, so I'm on one of these listservs, I think it's Nextdoor or something. And the staff and I talk about this all the time, because it comes up with these reports of burglaries, which I think are just when your burglar alarm goes off, right?
Yep.
And they don't get that information from you.
so I'm
Tell
glad,
the story about
yeah,
that.
I'm glad you brought that up. So, yeah, do not get your crime information from Nextdoor or any of these other listserv subscription providers. What they will do is, and the way they get their stuff is they'll go onto our crime data, our data Montgomery, and they might see and I'll give you a perfect example. They might see what looks like a burglary on a call that was dispatched to an officer for a burglary, but really it was an alarm for a burglar alarm that went off that was unfounded, where no burglary was discovered, but they're reporting it on their platform as there was a burglary at 123 Main Street. No, officers responded for an alarm at 123 Main Street. But like any business that's trying to sell something, they're kind of sensationalizing and using that information to attract attention and get users. So absolutely don't get your information from there.
Okay, well, thank you, because
Yeah.
we will explain that.
And Eric knows how
yeah.
to, or EJ knows how to get
That's
all of
excellent.
our information, because Yeah, you can even drill right down on our data Montgomery to specific calls for service.
Okay, excellent. The next topic I want you to talk about is so we've been advised in the past to tell our citizens that when there's a crime, don't report it on the listservs, call the police, and don't put too much information on. For example, recently, someone who was the victim of a crime posted it on a listserv, and it had her name and where she lived. And we've been told in the past by the police, don't do that. So
Right.
can you elaborate
Yeah.
on the use of, because some people have said that the police tell you to put information out in social media, to give us some advice.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. If you're the victim of a crime, you should call. If it's an in progress crime, you contact 911, and if it's occurred earlier, you can call our police non-emergency number, which is the 301-279-8000. I understand that some people might have the need to share their experience or feel the need to share it quickly with as many people in the community as possible. But where I caution in that is that they may have seen something, or their description of what happened might not be what it ultimately ends up being once we investigate or we respond. And then you're putting kind of bad information out in the community. They're, alarming folks that might not need to be alarmed. So I always say, let us vet the information, and hand in hand with that is also don't be afraid to call us if you see something suspicious, to see something, say something. I could count on, I'd be very wealthy if I could tell you the amount of times, or about $1 every time I went to the scene of a crime that occurred, and someone during the course of a interview or a neighborhood canvas said, I saw something earlier that was suspicious, but I didn't want to be presumptuous, and I didn't want to bother the police because I just didn't know. I tell people all the time, you live in the community, you know what belongs, what doesn't belong, what seems suspicious. And if it made the hairs in the back of your neck stand up or made you take notice, probably something was out of place. And the best thing for you to do is then to call the police. We'll come, we'll either find something or we won't. And if we find something and it turns out not to be suspicious, then it's not suspicious, but at least we have vetted it. We've allayed your concerns, or you were 100% correct, and it was someone casing the area or about to do something. We've stopped it before it's occurred, or caught someone after it just happened. So, but that's our job to investigate that. We don't want anyone else taking on that responsibility. So it takes a community, and it's no secret that our staffing is critically short. So we need everyone to have their eyes open, have really good situational awareness. And your situational awareness for where you live is going to be obviously a lot different than what my situational awareness will be in that same area, because you live there, I don't. So, and that goes if you're out and about shopping, whatever. So we want the community to help us be the eyes and ears.
So related to that, I've noticed on Nextdoor many times when someone has had an intruder or a suspicion of an intruder, and then they have, a lot of people right here have all those cameras, and they put a picture of the alleged intruder on. There's a lot of problems with that. Right?
Yeah, so I've seen it more on like folks that have Ring cameras. There's the Ring group that you can put, hey, this person knocked on my door, stole a package at this time, and that person's image will be out there. I don't think there's a way to, I won't say that, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, especially if someone has verified, yes, this person's physically took a package, or we also have people that submit Ring video that show someone trying their door, I have no problem with that. Those people still need to call us and let us and provide us with that
So
video.
it's okay to put that on a social media.
I will tell you that it's not uncommon for it to happen. And I've seen this person was lurking in the neighborhood, here's their picture. The problem I have is if they're only doing that and not calling us. So the message is, you call us, let us vet it. I would prefer that Nextdoor not be the place that people put out and vet suspicious information. If we think there's a threat to the community or we find that this is a credible threat, we will message out to the community because we do have a next door page that the MC that for the Bethesda district. So I'll make sure that you have that and your folks have that because what they should do is go to our next door page for MCPD
Oh,
2D.
that's good, that's good.
Our-
I didn't even know that. Did you all know that?
We have
Oh,
that.
excellent.
Commander Dom also has the 2D Commander Twitter feed where she pushes out information. But I'll make sure that you all have
Oh,
all the places to look to for my MCPD news, like our official, social media sites where we push out official information. Anything that we don't push out is unofficial or is speculation from the community. And again, I don't want to negate all of that because I do think that people in the community need to have ways to communicate and talk. And often we do find that hey, yeah, we saw the same thing and collectively present this to the police, but it starts with calling us first and letting us, investigate
Can I
it.
just clarify on that point?
Yeah.
So if somebody in our town
Mhm.
sees something or has been a victim of something, are you suggesting that after they've called the police, it's okay to post it on our listserv to alert other neighbors as long as you don't describe the people or describe the assailant or just stick to this happened without going into detail, or you say that they should avoid even communicating about the event?
So the process would be call the police,
Right.
let us come take the report. If we're writing a report and we have vetted the information, then I don't have a problem with people communicating, say, hey, my car was broken into, but more than likely, or their house was burglarized, let's say. Most of the time, they don't know who did it or what they look like or anything.
Mhm.
And the problem with putting video out might be that, we want our detectives to see that first. And, again, investigate, see what's going on, create some linkages, but there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we were away this weekend, our house was burglarized, we have video, and give a brief description of what that person looks like. I think that's totally fine. But that video should be with the police before it's being put out to next door or the ring group or whatever. We want to be the ones to vet the information first. I guess that's the called first, vetted first. And, because here's the thing, if we have multiple houses broken into, or we have some kind of spree of crime in any area, we message out to the community. You guys had 5 reported incidents in a year in the town. So that's why there hasn't been, we had a lot of messaging when we were experiencing harassment at Formatos, but now, because it's been quiet, you haven't seen as much messaging from us. But we are very good about messaging straight to the particular communities or areas when something's happened. For example, when we had the shooting in Friendship Heights, we were messaging out within minutes to all the property managers over there for them to be looking at video to see if they had video to assist in our investigation. If anyone saw anything, we have no different than if there was a high profile event here, we'd be notifying, the town council, the manager, the mayor, like, hey, we had this incident, even if we can get into the specifics. But if we know that this is going to be, you all are going to be getting calls about it, we want you to help you get out in front of it. So I think we do a pretty good job of that. So.
Okay, the next thing I want to ask about is parking enforcement. So, we have we have no parking areas here. And I know that that you don't have the capacity to help us enforce it all.
Right.
But if there's something that's really severe, like we have a problem at our entrance over here where people park cars in no parking areas during rush hour and it creates a big problem. And is there any capacity that you would have, that your district would have to send over an officer?
So
Tell us about that.
yeah, so what I would tell you is if you have vehicles that are blocking the flow of traffic or blocking someone's driveway, call the police non-emergency number. We will come. I can't tell you how fast we'll get there because in the terms of, call priority, and if we're busy, it might be low priority. So it could be a little bit. But you certainly, anything that's blocking the flow of traffic, blocking someone's driveway so they can't get out of their house, we will come. But if it's like a car that doesn't have the parking permit, if it's, you think it's parked a little bit too close to the intersection, you know, we are not trying, we do not have, like you said, we don't have the capacity to be parking enforcement, but I do have other ideas for you on how to deal with
Okay,
that,
excellent.
which I'll talk about.
And my last question, because I'm sure others do, is that people have asked about these blue and red tower lights in the
yep.
Saks lot, and is that
So
belong to
the,
you all?
yep, so the one at the corner of Wisconsin and Western is ours. The one in the Saks lot is either Saks's or the Chevy Chase Village Police. But they are security camera trailers that have a camera on them, which we can access anytime. So our real-time crime center has access to the cameras that are at the top of those. So like even this morning, we had a call right near the intersection of Western Wisconsin. We were looking at the camera to see if we could see what was going on. We hope to have more stuff like that deployed, but we put them in high traffic areas. We have also one on Bethesda Avenue right near the Capitol Crescent Trail. So, and the red and blue lights at night, you know, so people feel safe and they see, and it gives, you know, and I think people feel safe because they know, hey, the police can look through those.
So
have
we could
access.
get some fake lights and put up here, and people, and it'll be a deterrent.
Well-
It's just like some people some people that don't have security systems just get the signs that this house is protected. Same idea.
You just don't say that.
I would advocate for some if you don't already have some camera system, like a doorbell camera, at a minimum, I would have a doorbell camera. We have gotten a lot of great information from those.
So you would recommend that everybody in our town have a doorbell camera?
I like it just because I don't have to get off the couch. I can see who's there and, you know, talk to them through it and say, no,
Thank
not
you.
interested. See you later.
Okay, thank you. See, I can't, you've given so much good advice.
I have a couple of just a few
Sure.
questions. I'm the town clerk here, but most recently, I called 911 because I saw a guy, I was on my way walking out towards going up to Friendship Place to the post office. And right across the street, there was someone lying on the ground.
Yep.
It was just an odd, bizarre place.
I remember the
somebody
call.
lying. Do you remember the call?
Yeah.
No one ever came out that I know of.
No, I did.
You did?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why I remember
Well,
it.
I think while I was on the call, I did see the person move, but I still thought it's an odd place. So I think a woman had stopped by here. She and I actually went over there and were like looking at him, and his hands looked like they were swollen. I don't know
Yep.
what the issue was or whatever. And then finally it was like, I saw
So-
him disappear.
So we have gotten a few calls, that for unsheltered folks that do come from Friendship Heights. Sometimes they'll walk to Bethesda, and we have had folks not within the town, but we had a call recently. I think a lady who was on the corner of Morgan and Wisconsin call that someone, and she had Ring doorbell of the person trying her door, but the lady, you can see clearly was unsheltered.
Right.
Clearly, probably has a mental illness. We have had occurrences at the church up here, where they've had people, I think it's the church, is right on Hunt Avenue,
Mhm.
where, they've had, for a period of time, they had someone who had been, accessing the church in the overnight hours of the winter months, sleeping there. Most of the folks who are walking up and down Wisconsin, who are amongst the unsheltered population, are harmless, not looking for any, just trying to go from point A to point B and to find shelter. I will tell you, Bethesda Cares does an incredible job keeping up with them, and if we to say someone so and so we've seen they don't look good, you know, I think we need to check on them. They dispatch and they go find them, and they do an outstanding job. There's also a homeless advocacy group based in the Friendship Heights area, I think or right near the Rodmans.
Friendship Place.
Yeah, and they're really good on the DC side.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's certainly if it's like very cold out or excessively hot, and you see folks that seem to be called, because like in that particular case, that person I've dealt with many times, and he was just sitting down and he wanted to keep on walking. You know, eventually kept walking, and and I think there was another person, because I've heard two calls recently, that guy and another person who probably was not quite as physically capable as the first person, but refused, ambulance transport or any kind of assistance, and he has a public sidewalk, as long as they're not blocking the sidewalk, they can, we have, our job hopefully in that, what we try to do in there is make sure they are okay, that they don't need medical attention or any kind of immediate assistance. But oftentimes they're just making their way from point A to point B, and
Yeah,
so.
that day he was asleep, like.
Yeah.
Asleep, he was snoring.
Yeah, he had been drinking, yeah.
Then there was another time Justin and I were here, and I'd seen this guy kind of over here sitting, and realized he was using our electricity, so we went over and spoke to him.
Yeah.
He claimed to be a resident here, which clearly, so why would you be over here just
Mhm.
sitting? I think he's even maybe taking, personal property from other people's, because I think our public works guys had removed a chair or a bench or something that he may have taken to sit, because he apparently asked them why did they take his bench? So he got a little confrontational that just said, I'm gonna leave that one alone, because I was gonna be leaving it when Justin was here by himself, and the guy decided to lurk, just
Yeah.
make sure to block the doors. So, in cases like that, and I've had just a few where there were homeless people who, guy clearly came around to the building here, turned the faucet on, I guess he just wanted some water.
Yep.
But he was barefoot and shirtless and.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you can certainly call the non-emergency number. Just, you can report, trespasser or however you want to classify it, describe it. We are, you can also try to call Bethesda Cares directly.
Okay.
They potentially, if they're available, will send someone out.
I didn't realize they would send someone out, so that's.
I don't know that they will.
Okay.
They might.
Okay.
I think it depends, I think they have volunteer folks, and I just don't know what their day-to-day looks like, but certainly we can come out if you feel like someone's in distress or they're trespassing, and usually it's just, we just ask them to move on, and they do.
And then the
So.
last thing is, I guess, maybe a couple of months ago, two police officers chased down, I guess, Uber Eats guys on some mopeds, and I went back there, so it's kind of like, it's now like on the property here. And I guess they said that there are a lot of people who don't have these mopeds registered.
That's right.
And they were confiscating them, so
Mhm.
is that in the scene? The same day, I walked up the Friendship Heights and saw the same. What
Yeah,
are these
so-
officers doing?
So what you saw was on that particular day was, our traffic unit our central traffic unit will do targeted enforcement of certain, infractions. And on that day, they were doing, moped enforcement and registration enforcement. So that's why you saw more of that, because those mopeds, if they're over 49 cc, have to be registered. They have to be properly, titled and registered in the state. So that was the focus of that particular day. Yeah.
You mentioned 9/11, which I had from one of the other municipalities talked about long response times on the 9/11 system. Is it adequately staffed at the moment? Or?
I don't think they're at full staffing, and I would venture to guess that someone who worked in our communication center would say that they're not adequately staffed and probably haven't been in 25 years. Because I don't think we ever have enough dispatchers and folks up there. They really work their butt off. But they are keeping up with the calls that are coming in. So I don't think anyone's calling 911 and getting a busy signal or having to hold. Or when you call the police non-emergency number, I do believe that there's the potential that you might not get someone on the other end right away, but it's usually not more than 30 seconds.
Other questions online?
So if that's all the questions in person, if anybody on Zoom has a question, if you could please use the raise hand feature and I will call on you. I'll give you just a couple of seconds to do that.
Coming from Kumar.
So,
I got direct message from Kumar Vaswani. He has a few questions he'd like to ask.
and he's chair of our public safety committee.
Yeah, thank you. So his first question, and also his camera, he's having some technical difficulties. That's why he messaged us. So first question is, what should residents do when they find a lost pet left out in the cold? Who should they call?
They can call the police non-emergency number, and they'll be routed to our animal control.
Okay.
And our animal control has someone working 24/7, so they'll respond out, take possession of the animal, and take it up to the shelter.
His next question is about calls to 911 from landlines versus cell phones. Which one is faster to process? And how do the police determine the location of a cell phone that's calling 911?
So I don't know the answer to which one would get through faster. I'm gonna guess the landline probably gets through faster, just because they have to deal with, the signal. They're, as far as the phone number, where they know they're coming from, if it's in question, I know that they can, we can use GPS coordinates from the provider, the carrier, and see what cell phone tower it's bouncing off. So for example, if someone tried to call 911 and it was a 911 hang up, like they couldn't talk or get through and we deemed it suspicious, there's a way to triangulate, which to a certain level of proximity, a particular cell tower where it's coming from. And then what often happens is the dispatcher will, or the call taker will try to call the number back until they get someone on the other line. But if they can't, then it will be dispatched as a suspicious situation in the area of wherever they got the cell tower provided, closest location.
Okay, thank you. And then there's one more question. There was an incident on the Capitol Crescent Trail over Bradley Boulevard on March 13th. A resident said, quote, "The boys were blocking me from biking on the right side of the trail as I headed home from my office near there, and they continued to harass people after I got away from them." This resident reported it to 911. The incident number was 250007138. Officer Sizemore. He's wondering if you have any information. If not, maybe if you get back to the town with potential further information.
Knowledge of it, but I can certainly follow up and try to get that answered on the back end. They just want to know how it was resolved.
Yeah,
Okay.
just kind of information about
Okay.
what happened. Yes, he just said yes.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Is that it?
That's all I've received.
Right. And that's all I received. So with
I
that,
have one more
I also
question.
have one more question.
So what is the policy about enforcing the panhandling law in Montgomery County?
So as far as enforcing, we have the ability to enforce
Right.
panhandling, particularly if they're stepping out into the roadway. We typically do not give panhandlers kind of a hard time or engage them unless they are stepping out into traffic and causing a hazard. We have had instances where people have called about the welfare of the panhandler. So like we had a lady up off Old Georgetown Road, Democracy, who was taking her young kid, had her kid out there with her while she was panhandling. So we had a lot of calls about that. And
You see that on the metro.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, obviously we get to know who they are, and
Right.
our community services officer knows who they all are. We also have a unit within the county police called we have a CIT unit and a behavioral analysis unit, folks that go out and talk to them, do assessments. The Department of Health and Human Services for Montgomery County has the mobile crisis teams. So that go out. So oftentimes we'll refer those calls to them because they're really not really a police function. It's more of a, going to see address any mental health needs or concerns that the folks might have. So we try to address those issues, get them the resources they need. They don't really need the police. They just need, some other resources.
Last word.
Yes, last, for me at least, what is the policy on cannabis use? We have a bit in our parkland, between here and Willard. Anywhere else?
It's like Woodstock over there.
Yeah, I mean, so, right, this is a whole new world, right? The smell, odor of marijuana seems to
Yes.
permeate the air, particularly if you cross into DC. The bottom line is it's been decriminalized, which means that, you are allowed to possess it in certain quantities, up to certain quantities. You are not allowed to smoke it in public. You're not allowed to, possess it in large quantities and distribute it. Sell it. But it is not illegal to possess in your home, to go purchase and transport to and from. Certainly an issue that I don't know we're be able to wrap our head around is the amount of people that are driving while impaired and high on cannabis. Some people think that, they can drive just fine while high as opposed to drunk. I will tell you that, as a former, drug recognition expert, DRE, I was a DRE for many years, which means I was trained in doing, impaired, enforcement of drug driving. That folks that are driving high are just as impaired as someone who's driving drunk. I'm surprised we don't see more impaired driving accidents from people who are high. But you see it in a lot of other places, it's an issue, but it's certainly not illegal to possess. It's been decriminalized.
But it is
so.
illegal to smoke it, for example.
In public, yeah,
park
yeah.
area,
Oh, yeah.
minor short path.
Yep, yep. Yeah, let me just say one more thing. The one crime trend that I failed to mention that thankfully has not plagued the town of Somerset or this part of Chevy Chase. We have had some very high-end residential burglaries that you might have heard called the SAT-G burglaries, the South American Theft Group burglaries. These are the burglaries where they've targeted high-end homes, or folks that have a lot of jewelry, money. We're not quite sure how these folks have been targeted. These houses have been hit. They're often going in through upper level windows because of some people who do have security alarm systems tend to alarm the first floor, but don't think to alarm the windows on the second floor, which intuitively would make sense. I get it. So you'll see ladders and they're going in through scaling the walls of the house. But we just had another one up on Persimmon. The Potomac outer Bethesda area seems to be more of a target area, but with spring break coming up for MCPS schools, just want to make sure that we message to your folks, hey, make sure your stuff is locked up, that, get to know your neighbor. If you're going to be out of town, tell a friend, tell somebody so they can keep an eye on your property. And yeah, that was just the main thing. So
People should also not be on social media announcing under.
Yeah, they shouldn't be.
I tell folks all the time, I know you want to post about the places you've been or where you are, but I would wait till you come back.
When you come back.
And if you want to post something, and certainly, if you have valuables in the house, I would encourage you to get a safe or keep them somewhere where, not out in the open. So.
Well, on that note, I want to thank Lieutenant Elkin for coming today and for everybody who asked questions. You can end the recording in Zoom.